press release this morning. As you all know, that the Virginia Legislative Black Caucus hosts a press conference on the opening day of the General Assembly each year to present our priorities for the session. However, there has been a few changes following the election of Senator Donna McGeechan to Congress. I am Delegate Rosalind Tyler, President of the Virginia Legislative Black Caucus, and we have Senator Mae Mallock of Hampton, who has been elected President of the Senate Democratic Caucus. The Virginia Legislative Black Caucus continues to be 17 members strong. We continue to have 5 members in the Senate with yesterday's election of Delegate Jennifer McClellan. And also we have 13 House members with the election of Delegate Cliff Hayes from Chesapeake.
Perfect time.
The mission of the Virginia Legislative Black Caucus has always been to improve the economical, political, and educational and social conditions of African Americans as well as other underpressed groups in the Commonwealth. The caucus believes that a vital part of its mission is to raise the consciousness of other groups to the contributions made by African Americans to the Commonwealth and the nation. The caucus is known for their votes to support and protect the core programs in the budget, such as education, public safety, health care, and social services. Our first priority this year, of course, is to protect K-12 education funding in the 2017 governor's budget. Our second priority is criminal justice reform. As you probably already read, that Governor McCullough has legislation inhibiting driver's license suspension due to drivers' inability to pay court fees. This is good government. This is a bill that will help people in need and eliminate one of the main barriers that hinders employment. However, this year the caucus members are introducing legislation on education, job creation, mental health, economic development, public safety, voting rights, increasing the minimum wages, and banning the box. These are issues that we will continue to fight for in the General Assembly because there must be a change. In the words of the late senior Senator Yvonne Miller, we must always be the voice and the conscience of the Commonwealth. Therefore, at this time, we have going to have a brief overview of a few fine pieces of legislation from Delegate Matthew James on economic development. Followed by Matthew, we have Delegate Juwan Ward on public safety. Following Delegate Ward, Senator Rosalind Dance will come before you on ban the box and minimum wages. Matthew.
Thank you, Madam Chair. It's my pleasure to be here this morning. I'm going to be brief with a couple of legislative items that we intend to sponsor, that I will. First, I'd like to talk about a couple of budget amendments that we will put forward that will help sponsor economic opportunities in urban areas as well as other areas throughout the state, and that is to restore some of the brownfield redevelopment funds that has been recommended to be reduced, as well as enterprise zones. You know, those are the two issues, two main programs that basically help to fund a lot of development in the areas that we represent. We also have, I also have a bill that will be introduced that looks at a pilot plan to help fund smaller sites throughout the region and throughout the state that will make the opportunities business, as we call it, business ready, because a lot of times in urban areas, especially the sites aren't prepared for development. This bill would enable us to assimilate some sites and you know, in a manner. And the second legislation that we have is a agency bill, and basically this bill follows in the path of, it's a more what I call almost a common sense bill. Similar to last year, we passed a bill which said that if you were in the military and you had a skill set, you would get credit for that skill set in an educational facility. This bill would allow people who are in apprenticeships, and they would get credit for being in that, so they would get credit towards a degree in the community college and universities. It just makes so much more sense. As you know, workforce development has become a key issue in the Commonwealth of Virginia, and we feel that the sooner we get people skill ready, the better our economy will continue to grow, and the better opportunities we'll have for all citizens of Virginia. So those are some opportunities for us. I'm sure we'll have many more, and we can talk to you later offline on that. And I want to thank the chair lady for allowing me this opportunity to talk about some of my bills. Thank you.
Good morning. This year I am sponsoring legislation that's meant to keep a minor traffic stop from becoming a major incident. If I asked 10 people in this room what they should do if they were pulled over by law enforcement, I would get at least 10 different answers. And I'd ask you right now, where did you get your answers? Did you get it from your parents? My mother, 3 sons, and I thought I was telling them the right thing. Did you get it from friends? Did you get it from the internet? But have you seen some of what's on YouTube? Well, what this legislation is meant to do is to include in our driver's education program exactly what to do if you are ever pulled over by law enforcement. The protocol or the procedure will be developed by law enforcement and given to the Department of Motor Vehicles for our driver's education program. We want to just make sure that we educate the public and our young drivers on exactly what to do. We do not want a minor traffic stop to turn into something more serious.
Good morning.
Good morning.
I first want to thank our chair for allowing me to represent 2 of the bills that we as members of the Virginia Legislative Black Caucus are in support of in our agenda. And I have introduced Senate Bill 978, which will increase the minimum wage from its current federally mandated level of $7.25 per hour to $10 per hour, effective July 1, 2017, to $13 per hour, effective July 1, 2018, and to $15 per hour, effective July 1, 2019, unless a higher minimum wage is required by the Federal Fair Labor Standards Act. The measure also provides that the Virginia minimum wage applies to persons whose employment is covered by the Federal Fair Labor Standards Act. According to the National Conference of State Legislators, 19 states began this year, 2017, with higher minimum wages. California passed legislation this year that raises their minimum wage to $15 by 2022. Washington voted to increase its minimum wage to $13.50 an hour by 2020. And Arizona, Colorado, and Maine voted to raise their minimum wages to $12 an hour. Today's minimum wages, wage workers in Virginia earn only $7.25 per hour. Despite dramatic increases in worker productivity over the past half century, that doesn't represent us very well when we say we want everybody in Virginia to succeed. But many of them work for jobs that pay wages so low that their paychecks do not generate enough income to provide for life's basic necessities. The combination of low wages and benefits, often coupled with part-time employment, keep them from getting credit for health care, means that many of the families of certain service workers must rely on taxpayer-funded safety net programs to make ends meet. And you'd be surprised at some of the people that find themselves in these categories. Delegate Aird and I hosted 5 town hall meetings leading up to the General Assembly session. The economy and jobs ranked as one of the top priorities of our constituents. Consistently, we hear that raising the minimum wage is one of their top concerns. Raising the wage gives working families more money to spend, which in turn gives our community businesses more customers. You know, that we found, and it shows that when people are working, then there is less crime. Because it's a point of they are not a part of the hopeless. They move to the point of there is a possibility of achieving what we say is the American dream. Additionally, for the last 3 sessions, I've introduced legislation referred to as ban the box. This legislation would prohibit state agencies from including on any employment application a question inquiring whether the prospective employee has even been arrested or charged with or convicted of any crime subject to certain exceptions. Now, I faithfully introduced it, and I will tell you it might have moved a step out of one house because we're bicameral, but get lost in the second one. But you know, this is one that you continue to fight. We continue to fight for what is right. And this is for all Virginians. It doesn't matter, it goes across party lines, it's all Virginians should have that second chance. A prospective employee, when we finally get this passed, may not be asked if she has ever been convicted of any crime unless the inquiry takes place after the prospective employee has received a conditional offer of employment, which offer may be withdrawn if the prospective employee has a conviction record that bears a rational relationship to the duties and responsibilities of the position, and that's the operative word, rational. You will remember that Governor McCullough signed Executive Order number 41 in April of 2015, and I was so happy because there were those who said, well, what about your governor? What can he do about this? And he did what he could do about this. He signed Executive Order, but what happens when he is no longer the governor of Virginia, and this has not become the law of the land. So that's why we fight. And when we fight, it's all of us fighting. I am in the Senate, in the House fighting for minimum wage is Delegate Samuel Soul. In the House fighting for ban the box is Delegate LaSharice Aird. So we fight across and bicamerally because we believe in this, not just for African Americans, but all Virginians need these 2 bills to be passed. We ask for your support, and I know that Delegate Russell or Delegate Aird might want to say more in regards to their role, but we are equal partners, and we'll be fighting the good fight, all of us, all 17 of us, as the chair says, we'll be fighting the good fight to make a difference in Virginia.
Thank you so much, members, for an overview of your bills. Each members are continuing to introduce legislations, and we will be having another press conference soon to continue our discussion. But at this time, I would like Senator May Malott, President of the Senate Democratic Caucus, to come forward with her comments.
Good morning. Good morning. It's my pleasure to have led the Virginia Legislative Black Caucus for the past several years, and certainly to pass the torch on to Delegate Rosalynn Tyler, who I know will do an admirable job in leading our caucus. And as you have heard, this caucus is committed to its mission of supporting public education, of supporting criminal justice reform, of supporting employment, of supporting job creation. We will be committed to fighting for the underserved, of supporting every effort to speak for the voiceless, of supporting what Senator Miller wanted us to do. And we see her sitting on our shoulders and speaking in our ears and telling us to continue to fight that good fight. And that's what we're going to do as the 17 members of the Virginia Legislative Black Caucus, because we don't want her coming back here. And telling us that we are not doing our jobs as the members of this caucus and speaking for those individuals who cannot speak for themselves and do what we're supposed to do as members of this caucus. And that's what we're here for, and that's what we're going to do this session despite the obstacles. And we know that we're going to have opposition, but we're going to fight that opposition with our last breath. You know, even though we know that ban the box, you know, has gone through the Senate, you know, but we'll meet opposition, you know, someplace else. You know, every year we're going to be right back here fighting for it. You know, even though we know our constitutional amendment to restore voting rights to individuals who shouldn't be punished forever in life, you know, forever and ever, we're going to continue to introduce that constitutional amendment because it's the right thing to do. And that's what those of us up here, that's what we're about, doing the right thing. And we're going to continue to do that. So thank you very much.
At this time, we want to open the floor up for you who may have some questions or concerns regarding my legislation.
Are there any concerns about bills that have been introduced by your colleagues for the caucus that you find concerning and plan on fighting?
Well, well, the list is gradually growing. But as the caucus position, one of our main concerns is protecting the K-12 education that has not been touched. And we know as the budget process progresses along the way and individuals want to make cuts, we have to make sure that our children have the money in our systems for academic excellence and job training skills and continue that plight in the 21st century.
Is there any part of this agenda that you've gotten buy-in from your colleagues on the other side of the aisle in particular? Because a lot of this stuff sounds like things that might fall on a fizzle when it comes to the Republicans. Anything in particular that you guys have heard bipartisan support with?
Well, as I said, we constantly going to have some legislation to introduce, but as far as the other side of the aisle, we never know. We never know who's going to take that strong stand and support. But that's right, you do the right thing, exactly right. And I think our legislations are common sense issues that affect real people. And sometimes that gets lost up here.
Very much related to education, there is some bipartisan support for changing school discipline policy. So I'm assuming that all of you know about that, and we're very encouraged on that. If there's anything that anybody needs to promote on that?
There is going to be a legislative package announced by Just Children, the Legal Aid Justice Center arm that addresses issues that face children. They were the ones that brought to our attention the disparity study that shows that long-term suspension and expulsion disproportionately impacts students of color and students with disability. They are also the same organization that brought to our attention the study that showed that Virginia refers more students to law enforcement than any other state in the country, sometimes 6 times as many as other states. And again, those referrals impact students of color and students with disability disproportionately. I don't want to steal their thunder, but they will have legislation to address both of those, looking at prohibiting expulsion, I believe long-term suspension for preschool and kindergarten students. They will have legislation addressing whether you can be suspended long-term or expelled solely for disorderly conduct, which has become a vague catch-all for if you make us mad and we want to get you out. I mean, stories of a 6-year-old child sent to the principal's office who on his way out the door kicked the trash can and was referred to law enforcement for disorderly conduct. These are stories we have heard across the state. That package does have bipartisan support. Again, I don't want to steal their thunder. They're going to announce who their patrons are. But last year, Delegate Bagby and I worked very closely with Delegate LaRock, and I think a lot of you know we don't agree on much. But we very strongly agreed on this point. And I think you will see us agree on a lot of bipartisan support for that package.
Hi, back to the earlier question. As it pertains to the bathroom bill, we as the caucus are steadfast as we fight injustice for all. We have seen what HB 2 in North Carolina did, and we know that it's just not right for Virginia or for the nation. The nation is going to be watching what Virginia is doing. We will fight not only the injustice, but also the economic impacts that come with that. Virginia gained more than 700 jobs specifically because the company did not want to go to North Carolina. We do not need a repeat of that, and we will fight that.
Any other
I
comments?
think there, I was trying to verify that. I think I've heard there's already been a bill introduced that could suppress the vote that would require proof of citizenship before you could vote. That basically is a government issued photo ID requirement under another name. I think we know here in Virginia, because of our very ugly history with the Racial Integrity Act of 1925, there are still Virginians born in Virginia as late as 1940 who don't have a birth certificate, which is the #1 thing you need to get to documents to prove citizenship. We will fight that bill and any other bills that will make it more difficult to exercise the right to vote with all of our breath.
There are no other questions or no other concerns from the caucus. We thank you so much for being with us and continue to follow our legislation, and we'll do this again soon. Thank you.
Fight the good fight.